The galaxy is vast, teeming with civilizations that rise and fall like waves crashing on the shores of time. Among them, the Chloridians stood as an apex species, renowned for their technological prowess and ruthless efficiency. To them, humanity was an anomaly, primitive, chaotic, and yet unervingly adaptable. Reports of Earth's rapid technological advancement had reached the Chloridian High Council, sparking fear that the humans might soon disrupt the delicate balance of galactic power. The solution was simple. Humanity had to be eliminated before it could grow into a true threat. The Chloridian High Council summoned the Slyric Squad, a team of elite assassins infamous across the galaxy for their surgical precision and brutality. Each member was a biomechanical marvel, enhanced with cutting-edge augmentations that made them faster, stronger, and deadlier than any natural being. Their leader, HFY, received the mission with cold indifference. This was not conquest or diplomacy, it was extermination. Their descent to Earth was swift and silent. Invisible to radar and shielded from the naked eye, their ship landed in a secluded forest under the cover of night. The assassins disembarked, their forms cloaked in adaptive camouflage that rendered them nearly invisible in Earth's dim light. They moved like phantoms, blending into their surroundings as they began their reconnaissance. HFY's scans painted a damning picture of humanity. Primitive, she muttered, her voice a mechanical rasp. Fragmented governments, outdated technology, and biological frailty. This will be swift. The squad fanned out, studying the vulnerabilities of human settlements and analyzing their defenses. Major cities were bustling hubs of activity, but their security systems were laughably inadequate by Chloridian standards. Military installations, though more fortified, relied on antiquated weaponry that would be useless against the assassins' advanced gear. Their first target was a remote military base, a testing ground, a proof of concept for the mission's success. The Slyric Squad infiltrated the base under the veil of night. Guards patrolled the perimeter, their movements predictable and oblivious to the danger closing in. HFY gave the signal, and the assassins struck. In a matter of minutes, the base was in chaos. Explosions tore through bunkers, and soldiers fell before they could even identify their attackers. Chloridian plasma blades carved through steel and flesh with equal ease, leaving behind a smoldering trail of destruction. The assassins moved with surgical precision, each kill calculated, each step methodical. Amid the carnage, whispers began to spread among the survivors. A few soldiers managed to escape, fleeing into the wilderness with tales of invisible predators and unstoppable killers. But among their frantic mutterings, one name stood out: Baba Yaga. To the Chloridians, it sounded like a meaningless string of syllables, but to the humans it carried weight. The assassins intercepted communications from surviving units, their curiosity piqued by the repeated mention of this enigmatic figure. "What is this, Baba Yaga?" one of the assassins asked, their voice laced with disdain. HFY dismissed it with a wave of her hand. Superstition. Primitive minds cling to legends in the face of death. Focus on the mission. But the humans were not so easily dismissed. The survivors spoke of Baba Yaga as if she were a force of nature rather than a person, a shadowy legend born from war and bloodshed. According to the tales, she was a ghost of Earth's darkest conflicts, a warrior whose name struck fear into even the bravest hearts. Some said she was a myth, others claimed she was real but long gone. Either way, the legend of Baba Yaga began to ripple through the minds of the Chloridians, an uninvited specter haunting their mission. The Slyric Squad moved to their next target, emboldened by their initial success and undeterred by the whispers of human superstition. They attacked another installation, this time a small town with ties to local military supply chains. The result was the same: devastation. But this time, the aftermath was different. In the ruins of the town, the assassins found signs of resistance they hadn't encountered before, makeshift traps, rudimentary but effective, that hinted at a calculating mind. A few of their squad members sustained minor injuries, a rarity that sparked unease among the group. HFY studied the scene, her analytical mind processing the evidence. "This is no coincidence," she murmured. "Someone is adapting." The name Baba Yaga surfaced again, this time scrawled in graffiti on the walls of a destroyed building. "You think you're hunters? Meet the real predator." It was a direct challenge, taunting them to seek her out. For the first time, HFY felt a flicker of doubt. She dismissed it quickly, unwilling to let fear take root. But the seeds had been sown. The Chloridians had arrived with the intent to exterminate a species they deemed inferior. Yet now, they found themselves chasing a shadow, a legend that defied their logic and threatened to undermine their confidence. As the squad moved deeper into Earth's wilderness, the air grew heavier with tension. The humans they encountered were no longer the panicked, disorganized victims from before. They fought with desperation and cunning, leveraging the terrain and their limited resources to strike back against the invaders. It wasn't enough to stop the assassins, but it slowed them, frustrated them, and forced them to expend energy and resources at an unexpected rate. Still, the Chloridians pressed on, determined to complete their mission. To them, humanity was a pest to be eradicated, a simple task for beings of their caliber. But in their arrogance, they had overlooked a fundamental truth. Humanity was not simply fighting for survival. They were fighting with the ferocity of a cornered animal, guided by a myth that had taken on a life of its own. And somewhere in the shadows, Baba Yaga watched, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The legend of Baba Yaga wasn't born in peace. It came from the darkest corners of human conflict, whispered by survivors and soldiers who had witnessed the impossible. To the Chloridians, she was just another superstition, but to those who knew better, she was the embodiment of everything terrifying and indomitable about humanity. No one knew her true name anymore. That identity had been left behind long ago when she had stepped into the shadowy world of black ops and covert warfare. To her enemies, she was death itself. To her allies, she was both salvation and a reminder of the price of survival. Years ago, Baba Yaga had disappeared after a mission that should have ended in her death. She had walked away from it, though not unscathed. The scars on her body and soul were reminders of what it took to live when the odds were impossible. She retreated from the world, hiding in a remote wilderness where she could escape the ghosts of her past. Her cabin was a fortress disguised as a simple home. Every inch of it had been modified, filled with traps, weapons, and technology salvaged from old missions. She had planned to die there in peace, far away from the chaos she had left behind. But chaos had found her once again. She first sensed them before she saw them. The air shifted in unnatural ways, and the silence of the forest around her felt wrong. Years of training had sharpened her instincts to razor edges, and she knew the feeling of being hunted. When the first shot came, she was already moving. Plasma scorched the air where her head had been moments before, and the faint shimmer of something unnatural flickered in her periphery. They thought they were invisible, but Baba Yaga had spent her life fighting enemies who believed they were untouchable. Her cabin erupted with motion as hidden turrets sprang to life, firing bursts of shrapnel into the surrounding trees. The shimmer of cloaked figures became visible as the shrapnel tore through their adaptive camouflage. They were fast, unnervingly so, but Baba Yaga was faster. In the chaos, she moved with calculated precision, slipping between traps she had laid years ago, as if anticipating this very moment. One of the assassins triggered a pressure plate, and a spray of incendiary chemicals engulfed them. Another stepped into a hidden snare that snapped shut with bone-crushing force. The rest hesitated, regrouping as their flawless plan unraveled. But Baba Yaga wasn't just relying on her traps. Armed with a high-powered rifle and a sidearm she had modified herself, she picked them off one by one. She didn't aim for easy kills. She aimed for pain. A leg here, a hand there. Each shot was a lesson, a reminder that she was not prey. When the dust settled, one of the assassins lay dead, their body smoking from a combination of wounds and incendiary burns. The others had retreated, but not before leaving behind fragments of their gear. Baba Yaga approached the remains cautiously, her eyes scanning for traps or residual energy signatures. She had seen advanced technology before, but this was unlike anything she had encountered. It was both alien and eerily familiar, as if crafted by minds that understood violence as intimately as she did. She dismantled what she could, salvaging components and studying their design. Her mind worked like a machine, piecing together the puzzle of how this technology operated and how it could be turned against its creators. The alien metal was lightweight but strong, the circuitry incomprehensibly advanced yet logical in its execution. Within hours, she had integrated parts of it into her existing arsenal, creating hybrid weapons that could level the playing field. As she worked, Her thoughts drifted to the larger picture. These weren't random invaders. Their precision, their equipment, their tactics, all of it pointed to a deliberate mission. But why Earth? And why now? She had no answers, but she knew one thing for certain. They had underestimated her. The assassins, meanwhile, regrouped in their concealed base. The death of one of their own was a rarity, and it had shaken them. HFY paced, her mechanical limbs moving with a fluidity that belied their cold construction. "This is not acceptable," she growled, her voice sharp with irritation. "We are the hunters. We do not lose." One of her subordinates hesitated before speaking. "This, Baba Yaga. She is not like the others." HFY turned sharply. "Do you think I don't know that? She is a fluke. A relic of a dying species. But she adapts," another added. "She took down one of us and salvaged our technology. She is not fighting like the others." HFY's gaze darkened, but she didn't argue. The truth was evident. Baba Yaga was unlike any opponent they had faced before. She wasn't reacting to their attacks, she was learning from them. Each encounter made her stronger, more dangerous. As the assassins planned their next move, Baba Yaga prepared for theirs. She didn't wait for them to come to her. She studied their patterns, predicting their strategies based on the equipment she had scavenged. They were creatures of habit, reliant on their superior technology and an arrogance that made them blind to their own vulnerabilities. She laid new traps, integrating the alien tech into her designs. She created decoys, holographic projections that mimicked her movements to confuse their sensors. She even used fragments of their own communication devices to intercept their plans, staying one step ahead. When the assassins returned, they found a battlefield that was no longer theirs to control. The forest had become a labyrinth of death, each step potentially their last. Baba Yaga didn't just fight them, she hunted them. She used the terrain to her advantage, luring them into ambushes and dismantling their squad piece by piece. For every advantage they thought they had, she had an answer. Their cloaking technology was rendered useless by thermal traps that exposed their heat signatures. Their advanced weapons jammed when exposed to electromagnetic pulses she had rigged into the environment. By the time the battle ended, only a few of the assassins remained, retreating once again with the realization that they were not the predators in this fight. Baba Yaga stood among the wreckage, her expression unreadable. She didn't revel in the victory. It wasn't over yet. But for the first time, she allowed herself a small, grim smile. They had come to Earth thinking they would wipe out humanity without resistance. Now, they knew the truth. They had walked into the lair of a predator far more ruthless than themselves. And she wasn't done with them yet. The assassins retreated into the wilderness, their flawless facade of control cracking under the weight of an enemy they had failed to understand. The loss of their comrades, the repeated dismantling of their plans, and the unrelenting pressure from Baba Yaga had transformed their arrogance into unease. HFY knew that fear was an infection that could spread through even the most disciplined unit, and she resolved to eradicate it before it took hold. "This is no longer a simple extermination," she said, addressing her squad. Her voice carried a sharpened edge, calculated to cut through doubt. "This is war. And we will not lose to an inferior species." But even as she spoke, the squad could feel the shifting balance. They were used to being the apex predators, moving through their missions with mechanical efficiency and no resistance. Baba Yaga had changed that. She wasn't just surviving, she was forcing them to adapt, and that was a battle they had never prepared to fight. Meanwhile, Baba Yaga was preparing for the next phase. She knew she couldn't face this threat alone. The alien technology she had scavenged was powerful, but the assassins' numbers and resources were still overwhelming. She needed allies, people who could fight alongside her, even if they were inexperienced. From the scattered survivors of the assassins' earlier attacks, she found a small group willing to resist. They were soldiers, civilians, and even children who had lost everything and had nothing left to lose. At first, they were terrified of her, the living embodiment of a legend they had thought was just a story. But she made it clear that she wasn't there to inspire awe, she was there to prepare them for war. Her training was brutal. She drilled them relentlessly, teaching them how to use the terrain to their advantage, how to think like predators rather than prey. She showed them how to improvise weapons from the alien tech, turning their enemies' tools against them. Most importantly, she taught them how to survive. The assassins, meanwhile, regrouped and devised a counter-strategy. They abandoned their reliance on stealth and precision, opting instead for overwhelming force. Using advanced drones and reconnaissance equipment, they began tracking Baba Yaga and her group, targeting supply lines and safe havens to cut off their resources. They wanted to break her by isolating her from her allies and forcing her into a corner. But Baba Yaga was always one step ahead. She anticipated their moves and turned their aggression against them. When the assassins sent drones to scout her position, she used electromagnetic pulses to disable them, salvaging the remains for her own purposes. When they tried to attack supply lines, she laid traps that left their forces decimated. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about making them doubt themselves. She understood the psychology of war better than anyone, and she used it to her advantage. Every move she made was designed to undermine the assassins' confidence, to make them question their superiority. She began leaving messages for them, scrawled in blood or etched into metal with alien tools. They were taunts, promises of what was to come. "You're not hunters. You're prey." The assassins, who had once dismissed her as an anomaly, now found themselves haunted by her presence. As the conflict escalated, the humans Baba Yaga had trained began to see her not as a myth, but as a leader. She was ruthless, but her ruthlessness had purpose. Under her guidance, they learned to strike back with precision and ferocity, using their newfound skills to level the playing field. One night, the assassins launched a coordinated attack on Baba Yaga's group. It was their most aggressive move yet, designed to end the conflict once and for all. They came in waves, their advanced weapons lighting up the forest as they sought to overwhelm the humans' defenses. But Baba Yaga had anticipated this. She had spent weeks turning the forest into a fortress, filled with traps and ambush points. The humans fought with everything they had, their hybrid weapons cutting through the assassins' ranks. For every human that fell, 2 assassins were taken down in return. Amid the chaos, Baba Yaga confronted one of the assassins head-on. She moved with a fluidity that defied human limits, her hybrid weapon slicing through alien armor like paper. The assassin, caught off guard by her relentless aggression, fell quickly. She didn't stop to revel in the victory. There were more of them, and they wouldn't stop until she was dead. But the tide of the battle was turning. The assassins, who had come to Earth with the certainty of victory, now found themselves outmatched by the very species they had sought to destroy. They had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to fight back with ingenuity and sheer determination. HFY watched from the sidelines, her mechanical mind calculating the odds of success. She had underestimated this opponent, and it was a mistake she couldn't afford to make again. But even as she planned her next move, she couldn't ignore the growing fear in her own ranks. The assassins, for all their superiority, were not invincible. And Baba Yaga was proving that with every passing day. By the time the battle ended, the forest was silent once more. The assassins had retreated, their numbers dwindling and their morale shattered. Baba Yaga stood among the wreckage, her face expressionless. She didn't celebrate the victory. She knew this wasn't the end. The assassins would come back, stronger and more desperate than before. But she also knew that they were no longer the hunters in this fight. They were the hunted, and she was the predator who would stop at nothing to protect her people. The humans she had trained looked at her with a mixture of fear and awe. They had seen what she was capable of, and they knew that she wasn't fighting for glory or recognition. She was fighting because she had to, because someone had to stand between humanity and extinction. And as long as she drew breath, she would be that someone. The assassins regrouped for what they knew would be their final attempt to reclaim control of the mission. HFY, the leader who had always exuded absolute confidence, now carried an edge of desperation. Her once pristine armor bore the marks of their failures, scratches, dents, and stains that told the story of a foe they hadn't expected. Her squad was reduced to less than half its original number, and their morale was fraying. They had come to Earth expecting an effortless victory, but they were now the ones being hunted. HFY addressed the remnants of her team, her tone colder than ever. This is not a battle we can afford to lose. The High Council will not accept failure, and neither will I. Baba Yaga is not invincible. She is human. She bleeds. And she will fall. The squad members nodded, but their silence spoke volumes. They had seen their comrades fall to an enemy who fought with a ferocity that defied logic. Baba Yaga wasn't just a skilled warrior. She was a force of nature, an embodiment of humanity's refusal to surrender. HFY unveiled their final weapon, a devastating orbital strike system that could reduce the entire region to ash. It was a last resort, a tool designed to ensure victory when all else failed. But using it would mean abandoning the surgical precision they prided themselves on. It would mean admitting that they had been outmatched. HFY's voice was unyielding as she gave the order to prepare the strike. If we cannot kill her with precision, we will erase her entirely. As the assassins readied their weapon, Baba Yaga was already moving. Her intercepted communications had revealed their plan, and she understood the stakes. This wasn't just about her survival anymore. It was about the survival of everyone who had rallied to her side. The assassins were willing to destroy everything to win, and she couldn't allow that to happen. She gathered her group and explained the situation. Her voice was steady, but the urgency in her words was unmistakable. They've escalated. They're willing to burn the entire forest, the towns, everything, just to take me out. This isn't a battle anymore. It's a war of annihilation. The group looked to her for guidance. They had come to trust her, to believe in her ability to lead them through the impossible. Baba Yaga didn't offer them false hope. She didn't promise survival. Instead, she gave them a choice. You can leave now. No one will blame you. But if you stay, we fight to the end. We fight for every life they want to erase. And we fight to make sure they never think of Earth as weak again. No one left. The final confrontation began before dawn. Baba Yaga and her group launched a preemptive strike on the assassin's base, targeting their orbital weapon system. They moved with precision and purpose, using every skill and tactic they had learned. The forest had become their battlefield, and they knew every inch of it better than the assassins ever could. The assassins fought back with ruthless efficiency, but they were no longer the unstoppable force they had been at the start of the mission. Baba Yaga's group had turned the tables, using the assassins' own technology and tactics against them. The once invincible squad found themselves outmaneuvered, outsmarted, and outmatched at every turn. HFY, watching her team fall apart, realized too late that their mission had never been about exterminating a weak species. It had been about underestimating one. She faced Baba Yaga in the heart of the battlefield, their final confrontation inevitable. The two moved with deadly precision, each strike calculated and purposeful. HFY's advanced augmentations gave her an edge in speed and strength, but Baba Yaga had something far more dangerous, the will to win at any cost. She didn't fight like a soldier or an assassin. She fought like a survivor, someone who had faced death and come out stronger. Their battle was brutal, a clash of two unstoppable forces. HFY landed blows that would have killed an ordinary human, but Baba Yaga refused to fall. She exploited every weakness, every flaw in HFY's armor and tactics. She turned the assassins' own arrogance against them, proving once again that they had underestimated the resilience of humanity. In the end, it wasn't technology or strength that decided the outcome. It was the unyielding determination of one woman against the odds. Baba Yaga delivered the final blow, her weapon piercing HFY's core with a precision that left no room for doubt. HFY fell, her mechanical body crumpling under its own weight. Her final words were a mixture of disbelief and grudging respect. You are not supposed to exist. Baba Yaga stood over her fallen opponent, bloodied but unbroken. Neither were you, she replied, her voice cold and resolute. With HFY's death, the remaining assassins faltered. Some fled, their will to fight shattered. Others fell to the humans who had once been their prey. The orbital weapon system was destroyed, its destructive potential neutralized before it could be unleashed. As the sun rose over the battlefield, Baba Yaga surveyed the aftermath. The forest was scarred, but it had endured. The humans she had led were battered but alive, their faces marked by exhaustion and determination. They had fought for their survival and won, not because of advanced technology or overwhelming numbers, but because of the unbreakable spirit that defined them. Baba Yaga didn't stay to celebrate the victory. She disappeared into the wilderness, leaving behind only the legend of what had happened. To the humans who had fought alongside her, she was a hero. To the assassins who had survived, she was a nightmare they would never forget. And to the galaxy, she was a warning. Humanity was not to be underestimated.